someone came up with the idea that we would check our weights before and after Christmas, and that you would need to pay for every gram that you gained, and started to obsess over how I looked in the mirror, pinching my skin to see how much more fat I could lose. I was seriously starving myself. So today I want to talk about a topic that lays very close to my heart, that I want to draw attention to, because it is a very big problem in sports that not so many talk about. It is about the unhealthy focus on weight and appearance in sport, and how that underlies the development of eating disorders. The reason why I'm so passionate about this topic today is because I've experienced the negative consequences of these norms myself. I am actually writing my bachelor thesis about this very topic because it is known that athletes are suffering from eating disorders or disorder eating in a much greater proportion than non-athletes. I'm going to talk about my thesis and the results that I found there in another video, but today I'm going to share a bit of my own experiences about this. When I was 18, I moved abroad to become a full-time athlete. Track and field was really everything to me, and I had connected with a coach that was said to be one of the best coaches in the world. And I thought that in order to be the best, I also needed to surround myself with the best. So I really thought that this move would be what would help me to reach that world elite in long jump. So little 18-year-old Kajsa took her bags and moved away from home from the first time to another country. In this group, it was a very hard and tough climate. It was the mentality of go hard or go home. And something I noticed very quickly was that there was a lot of talks and comments about weight and looks. And among the first things that I heard when I came there was what our coach wanted us to eat or not. And I had never before really thought about food or weight so much. So at first I actually questioned this, because the things that a coach told us to not eat was things that I had learned from a very young age that you really need in your diet to, first of all, function as a human being, but especially as an athlete. So I talked with people that had been around elite athletes for a very long time, and I asked, is this really okay? Can I cut all of these things from my diet and still be able to train and maintain my health? And what I heard was, yeah, you can. And I trusted what these people said and thought that, okay, this is how you need to eat and be to be able to be the best in the world, to be a professional athlete. So I started to cut out a lot of things from my diet at the same time as I was going from practicing 4 times a week to 9 sessions a week. And meanwhile, there was a lot of comments about someone's appearance, comments about someone gaining weight or looking a little bit fat, and everyone in the group was constantly checking each other's plates when we ate together. And it also happened that people were sneaking down food in their pockets at training camps so the coach wouldn't see. Sometimes when we ate together, the coach would look at my plate and give me disapproving looks. And another thing was before Christmas, when someone came up with the idea that we would check our weights before and after Christmas, and that you would need to pay for every gram that you gained. And I felt that I didn't really like this. But to show that I was also a strong and unbothered athlete, I said that I could do it too. When we were at the training camp that had a group dinner, and after the dinner our coach put a little pie at the table, and it was dead quiet. It was like someone had just dropped a bomb in the middle of the dining table. And someone said, "Is this a test?" No one took any of the pie. It stood there untouched as a symbol of the norms in the group. So I started to lose a lot of weight. I practiced twice as much and ate half as much as before. I started to check my weight every day and started to obsess over how I looked in the mirror, pinching my skin to see how much more fat I could lose. And during my time there, I recorded like video diaries where I filmed myself. And when I'm looking back at them today, I can see how I'm constantly looking at my stomach, thinking I was still too fat, when I can see today, looking back, that I was already way too skinny. I was constantly hungry, and when I couldn't sleep because of it, I shoved a lot of sunflower seeds or something into my mouth and then tried to fall asleep. And when I woke up the next day, I felt some kind of victory that I made through one more day without eating more. Now I also started to be constantly sore in my body, and I had weird hamstring problems and colds that didn't want to go away. At the same time, I received appreciative comments from others about that I had become thinner or more fit, which gave me even more motivation to continue this behavior and eat even less. After a while, my period also disappeared, which worried me at first. But when I told those around me, they said that it's normal. It only means that you train hard enough. So I continued, and my period was gone for 8 months. Soon it also started to affect my mental health a lot, and that year turned out to be my worst year so far performance-wise. I had put all of my energy and life and money to be there, thinking I was gonna take the next step to the world stage for real. But instead I was 19 years old, sitting in my small room by myself. I kind of didn't know anyone there, and I also started to close myself off from other people. After a year, I decided to move back home to Sweden, and I realized how far everything had gone. How unhealthy the norms and culture in the group had been, and that I had actually developed an eating disorder because I thought that this was the way to success. So slowly I started to eat normally again. I got my period back and I started to feel better. I was happy being back home with my family and friends. And I'm not sharing this to point fingers at any people in particular, but to call attention to this unhealthy normalization of these norms and beliefs that can actually be very dangerous for athletes' health, where losing one's period or being too skinny is almost seen as admirable because it means that you work hard enough. And I know that my story is not unique. I know that I'm far from alone in experiencing this because I see it everywhere, and seeing this normalization of these norms make my soul fucking catch fire. And the thing is, my coach never said anything directly to my face, like, Kajsa, you need to lose weight or you can't eat this. It wasn't needed, because these norms were underlying in everything, in comments, in behaviors, the constant comparison with other people's bodies, in all the comments you got about your appearance, how we talk about food, and not least in how freakingly exposed our bodies is all the time. Because the thing is that an athlete gives 150% to everything. We want to perform at all costs. And if there's a way that seems to be the way to success, we take it. And if we need to sacrifice our health along the way because that is normalized, then we sacrifice our health. Like I said in the last video, athletes are perfectionists. And we trust our coaches and people around us 100%. At the same time as the norm of how an athlete should be is to be tough and unbothered, and you don't want to appear weak in front of your teammates or coach. That is exactly how it was for me that time when we were about to check our weights before Christmas. I was the youngest one in the group, and I felt like I had to prove myself all the time to be worthy to be in this elite group. I wanted to prove how tough I was, how serious I was about my career. And I think that is why there's so many athletes that suffer from mental health and eating disorders in silence. Because the thing about eating disorders is that it's a mental disease. It's the constant comparison, the development of an unhealthy relationship towards food and your own body, that you see yourself in a number on the scale, that turns into an obsession with weight. Food and weight becomes the only thing you think about. Back then, I was constantly thinking about food. I was constantly hungry and thinking about when I could eat next, but I was never full after a meal. And this is especially the case if you think that this is connected to your performances, your athletic success. I remember when I finally went to a nutritionist to check my blood values, and when I was there, she checked my body fat and she measured it and she said, it's okay. And probably she meant, it's okay, you are a little bit too skinny, but it's okay. But I took it as, you're a bit too fat, but it's okay. and I went home and ate even less. Or when my loved ones pointed out of concern that I had lost a lot of weight, I took it as a compliment. So this seriously fucked me up mentally. This is why only a small comment about appearance can land so wrong and do so much damage. And especially when us athletes is surrounded by these norms constantly and we have this pressure every day. No wonder that it's common that it gets out of hand. Today I have a healthy relationship with my body. When I came home again, I decided that I'm never gonna check my weight. That I will eat food because I like it and because it gives me energy. The following year, I had my best year so far, and I took my first national title. I am never gonna treat my body that way again. I was seriously starving myself, and that was seen as normal. That was seen as the way that you reach success. No medals or performance is worth it by far. And the thing is, if I continued like that, I would never reach those medals or performances anyways. But I still have a part from that time in me, where I know that if I start to experiment with food again, start checking my weight, there's a risk that it will go out of control. And this is the thing, we are not only risking our sports career, it can also affect you much later in life. I was lucky that I could get away from this situation, back to my family that saw that this was not healthy. There is not only one path to take as an athlete. I believe that appearance and the skinnier the better has to do with our performances. That's bullshit. Being healthy, both physically and mentally, feeling good and happy in life, enjoying training and competing, getting all the nutrition that you need to be able to have all of those other things, that is what affects our performances. So with this, I want to question the normalization of these norms and instead normalize talking about the problem in this. And that you as an athlete don't have to be hard or tough all the time. I know it's scary to speak up in front of your coach or teammates or other people around you. I know the feeling of not wanting to show up as weak. But speaking up about this is not weak. I want to normalize talking about mental health issues. And I know that the obsession with weight and appearance and being skinny connected to performance does not have to be the way. I know it for myself. When I followed those norms, I performed worse than ever and I got sick. And that is why I'm so passionate about mental health, because back in the days I was not prioritizing my health. I was sick, both mentally and physically, but I realized that it doesn't have to be this way. So for all of you out there that is suffering in the way I did, you are not alone. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can reach athletic success by far without risking our health. So let's bring light to this.